So that was a second interruption. As I said, there's an audio record underneath, and as I said, there's been recording in another phone. So by all chance, they're just proving the point that they can interrupt and any subject they don't like very much. Notice how I mentioned, several times I mentioned that when I'm documenting things that they want to be filmed, I point that out on file. Like, notice how they don't stop the video now, or notice how they didn't stop the video now. This is a contra scenario. This is a scenario when they do stop the video. As I said, it's not very easy for them what I was talking about. What I was saying is, this is not about this situation, but it's using the situation to solve another problem, which is whenever you see that they try to argue that evidence about them was not legally obtained, there's a difference between the legal terminology and authenticity. Authenticity means just is real or is made up, right? We're talking about, like, you can make things up, you can say that something belongs to someone that didn't, that's a lie. Illegally obtained is like obtained that without warrant. It's still his. It's still obtained. You established chain of custody. It's just that the method of obtention was unlawful, right? And that's enough for court because you don't want law enforcement breaking the law. But it's not about how authentic or not authentic the instrument is. Instead, let's say that they come up with, okay, I don't want to mention examples because, again, we notice criminals coming up with things. I think you should explain that to someone with experience dealing with law and experience dealing with probably this level of intelligence to sit and do it every day. I'm just pointing out, they know. And that's important for other things. And the point I'm mentioning when they interrupted the video, which was, by the way, notice interruption, once again, because he says it has no space anymore, and that's why it was interrupted, then he slid back and he started continuing recording. If there was no space, you wouldn't be listening to me right now, would you? So, and again, this phone authenticates everything. As a matter of fact, the timing on it, 24 minutes and 21 seconds. The timing between the videos, right? This is the third one already. It passed. I say, oh, but that's the thing. I don't know when they interrupted it. When I saw it, restarted. So yeah, this one is actually important for that. The timing on this, nothing else, shows how this has not been paused at all. So, moving forward. That's useful because at any point in the future they say, oh, that was filmed in a space when I was expecting or recorded audio and I was not told it was being recorded in audio. Well, but it is your voice, right? And you were saying those things. That's my point. And if they come yapping on the front, you can just push back in them saying, for instance, accusations about me. Now, let's say that they stole something from my phone. Notice that I could just debate that, right? I could argue that, well, they stole from my phone, and if it is, regardless of being legit or not, blah, blah, blah. Instead, because again, truth, right? I'm focusing far more on the opposite, which is if they think it's okay for that to be done, then they don't have a defense against that being done to them, right? Morally speaking. Now, they use and abuse that, or they think that means key element to me, as is noticed already, which, again, if used correctly, if used incorrectly, you get the outrage from people because you see criminals actually acting as a victim, and particularly certain types of people, but people in general tend to be peculiarly aggravated by, well, very disproportionately aggravated by that one. As you saw in the police officer mentioned, when you see a criminal getting away scot-free, and they're like, yeah, imagine if you're the victim, right? Or imagine if your victim was your daughter or your son or someone. That car was slowing down when it's passing that. Quite ridiculous, and then it speeds up again immediately after. That would have been a stalker car right there. So that's important. Perfect example. So let's say, and then you have that you are yapping on that vehicle saying this. Well, if collectively the criminals, that's relatively related behavior. Technically, he has the issue defense of saying that they don't know about the crime itself. We have other ways to prevent that one. But for this one, instead of even debating on the grounds of truth or lack of that off, on the latent grounds of they don't have the right to steal evidence from me, and that's true. And at any point, as a matter of fact, they were really expecting to debate my behavior or certain things that I say, as after stealing data from my phone. It was actually quite precious early on, I think something like his age, and that was this argument that they were having next to me. That later on discovered, for some of those, I should have no clue where they fucking came from. But other ones, I discovered that the idea was that they were debating things that I have said in the privacy of my own home to my computer or to my phone, and they spy on me and steal that and want to have an argument based on that. and the argument and the response is just a massive "fuck you," right? But as of these days, and because we have so many accusations, and as I mentioned before, you know what? No, actually, that's correct. I'm standing up on that. I will not debate or emphasize any of those illegal things by the criminals. Okay. Particularly because all the materials I have will be given to you anyway. What I'm saying is I'm not even need to dispute much on that because, as I said, not on bullshit grounds, right? Because on top of that, the war criminals are being accused of torture, drug crimes every day, and all sorts of atrocities. Think that they are debating good manners with me for things like, you speak this improperly, or you badmouth someone, or you call us piss and shit. And yes, and you have no idea what people do. Well, that's just as we know. If you think that PC Boys, which was before, was bad, again, you know very little of what's come. We're moving forward. So here's the deal. And not to mention they destroyed the life of one person, right? Because as we know, the crime didn't start when I figured it out. When they showed themselves to me, this crime was full-fledged happening already. This crime started roughly by, I think, 2016 minimum, potentially more than that. The best assumption would be something like, I don't know. I know 2016 because I did this, I mentioned the hemorrhoid operation, and the doctor, in hindsight, had every sign of being a criminal, which I only realized after the operation, to be honest. But not even like after the consultation. During the consultation, I have some hints, but some things are just doctors being bitches in general, right? For instance, I said it's hemorrhoids because I've been going to other doctors, and it's not like something hard to identify. And it goes along the lines of, you diagnosed yourself, and then like that passes as some doctors are bitches like that. He would have recommended him though, which was supposedly this family friend of the family, and the way they was representing was like telling about his wife and telling that literally this nodule in her anus that popped off, and like TMI, fuck. Sorry for the language, but like, I don't need to know that. Why are you telling that to me? I don't know about the nodule that blew up inside your wife's asshole. Like, fuck. And that's the thing. Like, seriously. So, sorry. The imagery. I do apologize. That's literal, by the way. It's supposedly family friend, more like Tanya's friend, which tells something you need to know. So, in a nutshell, by the way, the video's been interrupted. It's like this crime happening back home. Let's say that they have a genuine belief that the things that are happening at home was so outrageous. Then why didn't they stop it? And there's no ways around that one. Halfway evidence in the sense that they will complement that with their own shit argument. But it's pretty straightforward. If at some point you see that something is genuinely bad, you put a stop to it. Hell, I noticed from day one that crimes with children would be one of the easiest ways to make the entire planet absolutely despise anyone who even similarities to this. For the same videos they keep recommending for me, that they think that their lie is going to stick. Because they should believe to this point that the people who live in a place like this are the cleverest guys in the entire planet. Everybody else lives in other places with other things. Are just dumbasses, right? They're there because they're born there, always born there, and those places are always born beautiful and perfect, and there are no consequence of the people who are hardworking to accomplish those things and being actually smart about it, right? Which, by the way, is a syndrome. I don't know about other South American countries. I know about Brazil. Brazilians have. This is perfect, right? Even this comedy character, they emphasizes that very much. And says, like, in France is where all the terrible things are, or here's paradise. Absolute perfect. Nothing to change, and everybody's proud of being Brazilian. And, yeah. No further commentary needed. As for but as I said, those are things I often comment at home, and I don't dispute that I talk about a lot of things, but as I said, moving forward. And they're true. And it hurts is that they're true. They're not pissy because I said it, being a nobody from a place everybody likes to hate. Not particularly type that aggravates a lot of people. The fact that they're true or not, that might have some implications. So moving forward. So here's the deal. We're gonna get to more important things, but as I said, to me it's just one in a long list of crimes. It's not the first thing they accuse me of. Every time that they hear the drug crime, so by the way, exactly the same thing now. Exactly another stalker vehicle being stopping, dropping no one, picking up no one. Exactly more the same. So, as I was pointing out, so it is indeed a more problematic one in the sense that it could be potentially more harmful, but it doesn't matter. It wouldn't make much of a difference for them to try their lies about crimes of children instead of the lies about crimes of drugs. It would be demoralizing in the way. And, by the way, bye-bye vehicle. Didn't even get to stop, didn't even get to be a full stop. Alright? Probably assuming that there would be no way to record them would be my best assumption. Moving forward. So either way, it's virtually the same, right? Because this is not life. So one or the other. If you wonder why he's talking about what you're gonna get to a systematic, more active conspiracy, there'll be co-worker term for conspiracy which I actually avoid because I don't want to make this be taken trivially. So instead, active effort by a lot of criminals to try and to accomplish something. Because as I said, when I noticed that even when I mentioned this close up the parenthesis, I'm just saying, if I'm going around even talking about other matters, and you say, well, if you're really concerned about people being actively trying to accuse you of something as serious as, those types of crimes, shouldn't be more focused. And the idea is, doesn't make much of a difference. When you're trying to accuse they use drugs here, try to accuse even light drugs, or try to accuse of other things, the results are the same. Either the status quo, what it is, which is you not helping, or some other variation of that, or murder. Nothing has changed. That's the point, and they failed. They did so many atrocities, so many crimes, so many absurd things, that they don't have any leverage anymore. They don't have anything more. It's just another Tuesday. And this is a perspective for this crime. Because most people under the perspective of being systematically, by a lot of people, that's what systematically, accused of such a hideous crime, like unthinkable crime, would be very concerned, afraid of everything else. But as I said, and I am, so much so that I am making this explicit. Ideally, I was just talking down this phone, the little one, and before I even started recording on the other one because of the space, I even wanted to connect the car because this looked a lot of a trap, right? The gate was not open, the wheel was on the other place, like the weather is good, they're not throwing drugs that I noticed of, they're throwing some, I think, but not too much, not like usual, depression drugs and other things. So it's a trap. It's a trap. And I think it's a trap for me to do backups so they can interfere with things and clever a bit in there, but either way. I didn't even want to put the thing on the phone just in case, but either way, I think it's more a trap for me to back up, particularly back up a little bit. But my point is, by the way, that's a day with no drugs, or fewer drugs, I suppose. And we can see how the cat is a piece, the other cat is a piece, is sleeping peacefully, as a matter of fact. I know where she is. Mama cat is there. They're all fed. We're all good. I was just watching that. So you have there you go. Oh, she was asleep. Now she's awake. Hello. Are you good? By the way, they did something to her. Some type of disease. I'm going to showcase that later. I saw that these days as well, not just today. But you can see just in general how cat can talk, how it can phrase things. Not talking about that, not spilling, not pissing. None of the things. Just like that. Apparently all those things, they'll be not chronic, they'll be the opposite of chronic. Long-term diseases disappear in a glance. Just because they want to keep that trap to work with. Either way, as I was pointing out, which by the way, same traps like this, traps like the one yesterday, just pointed out me leaving the thing. It's just another trap. At the end of the day, the methods are actually the same. They use a lot of individuals. They are pretty easy to get, very easy to see, honestly, for most times. They are over the top every time. They're off the sale. You can say that that's one of the ways it goes. Technically, it doesn't count, but you know, and all the rest. So, as I was saying, I think I lost something in the future. The thing though is, by the way, just to show, see the head, top of both heads, the loss of hair and other things. Okay, I would likely have to take her to the vet, to deal with that. Just want to point out, she survived here for over a year, and then a couple months or 1 month after I saw another cat over there, really sick, that had no relationship to here. Remember that there was a sick cat that was here much before that, like in January and December. Yeah, nothing. And then by April, again, almost mid-April, is when we're noticing the disease on her. After at least 2 months since the cat being completely gone, and this cat was here a long time before as well, right? So just pointing out to you that they did this to her, so that would count as animal cruelty. When you deliberately transmit the disease to that would be bioterrorism if it was a human being. But again, we have times on their own with intent to cause, well, again, we'll dive down when the time comes, but to deliberately pass something to this is the type of thing that I don't need to comment too much on. Moving forward, we need a social component to be actually terrorism per se, to try to accomplish the type of goal. In this case, it would just be some type of biological crime when you're using a disease. And again, I'm not diving on that. This sounds silly. I just want to point out there's another form of animal cruelty who looks at an animal like this and see it as a tool. Probably the same criminal that looks at a child and see that as a tool, right? And as I said before, back putting in mind, because now we're digressing too much, I'm starting to forget things. When I saw that there would be huge weight for you to see them for what they do to me. What I said right now is just another Tuesday being accused of something hideous with no basis or anything else, when I can simply say, look into the evidence and just authenticate everything to make sure that you actually see actual evidence rather than make believe. But other than that, you don't really need me holding your hand for those, again, horrendous accusations, because I know what I did and know what I didn't. But most importantly, didn't do. I can English, I promise. The point though is, just an average Tuesday, and on that sense, day one, I noticed that. So being able to see those things would be very good, regardless. I didn't found that that was an acceptable thing to do. And as I said, I was in doubt, but in case of doubt, there are many things I say in case of doubt, big courage or the right thing or tell the truth. But at the end of the day, they all fall in line. I mean, to be a moral person, or else it tends to be the thing that, we cannot predict the future. But in case of doubt, again, as I say, it's not like I wouldn't go around certain corners if necessary, but at the end of the day, it's a very practical way to demonstrate. And it tends to pay out in the end. So, it's not like, for instance, I wouldn't run and hide at certain times if that was necessary. But as a rule of thumb, standing your ground and telling the truth is the best way to things. Which, in general, you have to trust the people good, and ultimately that they want to be, because ultimately what they think the issue is stuck on is, it doesn't matter. If it is in general for me to believe in this idea of the world, if the world is what they want it to be, I simply not want to be a part of it. It's simply not worth it. I don't think it is, but I'm just pointing out a much simpler argument, which is, even if it was, it would not be worth it. Anyway, moving forward, as I was saying, but I didn't want to. So basically, I just didn't want to see more innocent people getting hurt involved in this. Much like you see me getting aggravated, the crimes to the animal, and now that aggravates me personally. And that's the intention, by the way. And same thing with crimes of children, right? As it does to most people. When I can see that, and I saw that, and I mentioned that specifically. So they cannot even have an excuse on grounds of either ignorance or stupidity, because neither of those are going to stick. They're grown individuals, unlike the children they're using, and they know what they're doing. So keep that in mind. As for and they know, because as established before, they have access to information on their phone, and they went upstairs where I have to document those things, both in the first floor in the mall and then in the bathroom later. And they stalk me and they steal information from my phone, so they know. Every criminal, I cannot say for everyone. See, this level of legal technicality that I follow, and this code, you can almost say, that is the point. Like when I say they know, technically not everyone, that doesn't mean virtually no one except two dudes. That means I'm being technical. We established that they share information from my phone, and we established that they lie, which is the point, but also established that they all seem to always be aware of the lie. Every single time you give them one of them, they're trying to believe something unbelievable, right? It's seeing a man struggling to move their luggage inside the bus and acting up as it was the most obvious thing that he was filming everybody in the bus. And no, it isn't. For most of those times you see me filming individuals, that's why I still continue that. It's not the obvious thing. In fact, it's very rare to see that. You might say it's a weird way to move at times, mostly because it drug me to hell and back. But at the end of the day, if you look closely, it doesn't even make any sense to think that. This time on the bus, I was struggling to move a lot of luggage and people just parked in the way, unwilling to give one step forward. Anyone who acted weird or trying to move on there, it had weird movements or positions. The way that you see their faces when they just take as the most clear truth. So as I said, cool. And I'm not even complaining about that. I'm not bitching that, oh, you're being mean to me. And great. Is that the case? Perfect. I can use that. So they know. It means that they know everything. It means that they know the things, right? Cool. That's exactly the point of this recording, right? As I said, I can work with the thing. The problem is that they want to have the cake and eat it too. They want the reality to bend to their will in such a way that they can accuse me of things that don't make any sense together. Basically say that I am both on hyper drugs and on sedative drugs at the same time, and that somehow has nothing to do with them or drugs. It's just normal. They want opposites to go along, and like things are literally on the opposite of the same scale. So happen at the same time, on the same instance, and you should not think that there's even weird about it. They want everything. So, as I said, mostly because they're too stupid to actually get the things to work properly, and they have to circumvent it when they fail later, or because they are immoral. That, as I said, that's a result of you just masturbating each other, or as I like to say, because it's beautiful. I can see how that's going to turn to speech later. And just go along with things you know don't make any sense, because if kind of like any other vice, you get addicted to it. So later you don't generally have a way to stop doing it or circumvent. So as I said before, they haven't reaping the benefits of their own moral choices. And at this point, they generally believe that you're going to spare a parent telling a child instructions. A child looks at me, then looks at the parent and giggles, and then does something weird in front of me, and say, that's probably the guy that's just documenting that, and usually glance and usually feeling very uncomfortable about it, but also doing that very explicitly, and then talking the same video showing his face, and explaining that, and then publishing this video, not on the internet because it has a fucking child in it, but in contained environments to be given to the press, and the blood, and even a blooded child's face, you can still see the child, you can just know which child it is, which is the point, and see in the context. Again, it takes a long time, it takes a lot for you to generally believe. They look at that and just, that's what it goes to your mind. So, as I said, through the 3.5 years that they constantly abusing me, trying to, and they're not even shy about saying that to you, or at least they're not shy about saying that to you recently. You can see that in videos. Not recently, videos are a bit old, but you can see them. They're not shy about that recently in general. Up to recently. Up to now, I'm saying that you can see them doing that behavior a lot these days. This one in particular, I don't think it was recent, but either way, when, kind of like a frog in hot water, that they kept ever more doing worse things to me and to prevent me blowing off. Well, there's a problem with that, and one of them is that, as I said, I learned. I'm not the same person that was in the starting, not the step for those days, when the digital crimes seem to be met with redundancies instead of being met with desperation, which was the original outcome. By the way, if you want to know those moments when you don't see many videos, just imagine a lot of despair, a lot of anguish, a lot of pain. a lot of suffering, a lot of just believing that all this stuff, everything they did to me, this point, they drugged me. Took me now to notice they are throwing hyping drugs. They're difficult ones to notice, and even then not too much. So it took me now to notice. This is something that always affects me, and I noticed I couldn't feel emotion. Even now I cannot feel emotion. So I rectified that one. They are drugging me. They're drugging me with hyper drugs, but I feel confident enough and do that. I should stand by the original assumption that is indeed for me to be confident and do the backups most likely. Oh, what an auspicious moment. Well, sure, it's just another random coincidence. But yes, as of the past few seconds, past less than 10 seconds before you hear the motorbike there is when I finish concluding that they are indeed throwing narcotics on me. Honestly, I don't even know if that was on purpose. It might have just been karma, but it is beautiful anyway. Either way, as of now, at least the wind blows from the front. That's important to emphasize. It might have something to do with the intensity of it, though. As I said before, even for hyping drugs, which again, not surprised. They use them so much on me that I know exactly how they function, and the dosage is considerably smaller. Because I would have noticed they throw the normal dosage. Yeah, the normal dosage. All those things that have things, and then just take them as normal things. Yeah. You imagine that throughout this, they actually end up desocializing themselves in the process, which goes a long way. So, as I said, the real victims, that is. I mean, the whole real victim thing goes a long way. And for the longest time, it was very concerning to me until I realized that they're just fucking imbeciles. If these children's crimes had happened before, I would have seen that earlier. Because it takes a very peculiar type of individual to have a genuine expectation that you can tell a child how to be next to, act weird, and try to get any person to be, well, uncomfortable, I'd say at the very least, most concerned, and in a position where a guy who is known for having no one on his side, just be by himself and filming everything, and then you tell a child to be acting weird next to him, knowing that he'll document that, so you can later try to use that to accuse him of something that you know had nothing to do with this, because you told that child to be there, and otherwise he wouldn't even notice you exist, or your child. It goes a long way. Again, just know, as I said before, there must be consequences. So know that they know. They know all of this. They know the details. They know all the things about this crime. They know that this is something that the other ones do, and they know what they're doing, right? I'm still going to have another explanation for that later, but plain and simple that. And honestly, I think that whatever excuse they're going to come up with is going to be the best thing to just tell the people. Nothing I could say is going to sound better to explore the horror of their crimes than whatever they're going to come up with to justify it. So I'll just say more power to them. Just listen to what they have to say to you, and make sure to let people know. Moving forward, as for what happened, concluding what happened. But yeah, so I mentioned, I noticed there always be fantastic evidence that would end this crime and expose what they did to my family and everything else. So just being one that I cannot cry. I was sounded fake as fuck too. Just to show. When I was leaving, when Tanya was leaving, side parenthesis is important, and I keep checking because when Tanya was leaving, I felt that day that everything that I was saying, it just sounded like some type of acting, and I think that they're throwing the same drugs in here now. Probably now, I'm saying it now. So everything that I thought about it, even saying those things, felt like more of those things. Okay? It doesn't matter in the end, as I said. My situations are pretty simple to analyze. Their situations are equally simple. You see all that in video. Okay? They see that in video, in those videos that exist today. You don't need me to explain and talk my way into, or me to talk their way into this, or my way out of that. You can see everything, conclude and explain the things for yourself based on the videos you have. I say all those videos can be. That's what I'm saying. Authenticated videos. That's crucially important. Okay, see the material you see, it's the real material, right? Other than that, there's nothing I can say into or out of. You see the things for yourself. Everyone knows. Law enforcement, government, the criminals you see in here, shit country, dumpster country, Argentina and Paraguay respectively. Just a look everywhere, they know. Also, by the way, yesterday, as you saw in video, we explained why dumpster country is called dumpster country. That's not by far the best evidence. The best evidence would be when they try to purchase this phone. It was everything was recording the little guy, recording on the other phone. That was one of the best evidences. The other time, they said that it stank. And yesterday, funnily enough, one of the best evidence that happened inside, you can actually listen to from the guy and say, don't know what the genius plan that was. But that was a trigger for me to actually be somewhat concerned. Since day one, I pointed out that crimes I could see they're trying to do, which accused me of crimes of children, which hardly a genius, you figured it out. And I pointed out that that was disgusting, and then that I wouldn't have no part of it, and I have that on day one. Like, everyone can see it. On day one that I noticed that, and it probably already done from before, but the day I thought it was important, I pointed out, I said that I would intention to document all the other ones, and I have done so far, and everything is on file for you to see, and that's it. Okay, at the end of the day, and even when for the chewing up of, there will be still fantastic evidence, and so they don't have an excuse on everything else. Now, the problem was they could just stop at that point, which means they wouldn't have as clear evidence of the intentions as you see now, and obviously make it as flash about the rest of the crime. I mean, nothing else happening. Still, this hell continues. This hell has to stop, right? So the point is, just not being accused of this one thing that I didn't do doesn't solve not being accused of the other things that I also didn't do. He has to solve all the issues. For that, you hope. And then, by the way, the idea that they're accusing of crimes of children, being a pedophile or things like that, is hardly new from this one. Okay? As a matter of fact, the reason I don't like to mention those things and people can see how much of a threat with the knowledge is much more clear is not because of one reason or other, it's because tampering with evidence. They don't want to make it too easy for them to put certain things in certain places. I would, again, use normal technology, is much more clearer. Besides, this has to go on YouTube, so you know how fucking stupid certain things seem to be. Either way, moving forward. Yeah, this is going to YouTube. There's only the other guys. There are other explanations. And I think it may even publish this one now. Either way. The thing though is, so there's that, it's on file, and instead of acting like including the rationalization, which is the killer point for that, right? Which is, if they say that I am indeed, as I said, a pedophile, then you want your child right next to him, right? Because that's usually how, when you have this guy who's obsessive, who's living in the streets, has very little to lose, that's the guy you want to put your child right next to. And they say, oh, in public, yeah, well, just in public. So what? What is the accusation? Now, that's the point. Certain things are much harder to accuse someone of than other things. So, as I said, depending on the accusation as it's gonna fly, again, just guessing. I was gonna say eyeballing, but you know. Depending on the thing as it happens, you need to ask those interesting questions of then what is the idea? Because as I said, when you see those things, you know those children are there because they're told to be and they're there on purpose. And that's the only thing you have to prove. Because if you say that I was filming children, well, they're there because you told them to be. So you don't put in that to be filmed. Whatever you say about me, whatever you conclude about me, it wouldn't change those facts. They had nothing to do with me. And I pointed out day one when they started doing those children crimes, saying that you get fucked either way. So in fact, if more explicit it gets, the more you get to see that, right? Because you get to see those parents by face, and those faces are not going anywhere. Now, it may think that some other atrocious crime is going to happen, but I'm just pointing it out. So, because, and the other option is that they know I'm an innocent person, they know I will never hurt the child, but they're just using that child as a way to get a guy who isn't. So, as I said, whatever it is, though, whatever option, whatever reality comes to be, whatever they claim that they know, they get fucked either way. And I mentioned that they won because, again, as I said, I don't want those things happening. Now, it's very good evidence for all those reasons. I just don't want that happening because, again, it's furthermore innocent involved in this, and it's one humans you see around this crime that are actually innocent will often be those sometimes very small children. And you know that because fucking sick is sick all the way. They pick up these smaller children, even though they make far more sense to use teenagers and other ones. But again, when you go sick, you go all the way in, right? And you see them using particularly these very small children. And, well, they are innocent. They have no fucking clue what they're doing. And as I said, I bet they even try to use consent to those very small, particularly babies, to that, which... Okay, I need to focus. The point is, so you have the, and then try to, again, listen to the explanations though, please do. I said before, authenticate the things might right to the man because I'll be accused or something, and least I can demand is for the thing to be proved to be real, but one thing I can just ask you is to listen to what they have to say and publish the explanations. It's gonna be the best. As a guy who experienced this cameras for so long, you have to keep in that, right? And by the way, they try to use things that they say against me, right? Why don't they use this one? I mean, I would publishing that myself, but it's not like they cannot actually. Anyway, moving forward. Just saying that they are very sick and perverted when they mention things that I mentioned and try to, try in the most sadistic way, even by words, in word games, used to me, as you saw that, quoting passed away family members to me. There's some sort of gloating that you murder them. And then you have I'll be very glad if they were to tell you to listen to this recording, for instance, or any other explanation videos in particular. But I'm trying to finish about yesterday. So yesterday I arrived in this thing. So I filmed, and then I realized that the flashlight was on. I don't think the flashlight was on from the beginning. And if it was, that female, which seemingly a child, now again, seemingly, because many of those also be confusing. So maybe it was a teenager. No, I mean, it wasn't a teenager either way. Maybe it was like a grown up, like, I don't know. Didn't care, looked enough to me for the amount of look I'd give. This one I gave some concern because I was filming from distance, where he was going. And again, when you have the phone vertically, in the very space where I happen to be, and I happen to have stopped because they were drugging me, and I can testify to all those reasons. I didn't look at that, I was looking straight forward. And as I said, you would have one female down on the lane, apparently typing something on the phone under direct sunlight in a very hot day. You had the female in front of Hotel Phoenix. You had the two males sitting on a curb stomp, again, on direct sunlight in a very hot day. At that time it should be 4 p.m. Not the hottest sun, but either way. Just by themselves, closed doors behind them, not like interacting with anyone else, not like there for organic reason. And then you have this group of one female and two males that I filmed by face very close by, like this supposedly coming out of the bridge, even though they have the same accent of people in this place. So the point was all of that to all sides. And as I said, that's an ambush. And I explained that the whole thing in the file. You have some trigger of something. So it's another crime with children. Because as I said, they're using the children as a way to film. Anyone filming me will be filmed back in the same way that I do every single other video. So much so, terabytes of data. Go to town. Good luck. Not even good luck, like just Godspeed. Godspeed is the way to register. So terabytes of data. To the stationary point. Nothing I can say again will change the things that I already filmed for months on end, right? And they picked up that one thing, document back as I always do, which is what I always do. If nothing else, I'll feel far more suspicious if I didn't. But either way, the MAGA hat, which again I have to say, it is important because I know diving into U.S. politics. Oh, the statue now. The statue and the statues at these days are priceless. Normally they always ignore me, which by the way can be used, much like things we mentioned before, can be used reciprocally. In other words, so if what I'm doing is normal, to the point where you don't even bat an eye for it, then it's normal all the time. A sort of reasonable person in this culture would think. And if it is reasonable, then it's reasonable. It doesn't become reasonable when they want it to be, and then it becomes unreasonable when they don't. Right? Same rules, same time, all the times. All the terabytes of data, all the thousands, dozens of thousands of individual incidents. Everything is the same. So, as I said, if it is outrageous, then you cannot see them doing that because they do those actions all the time. They point the phone at me. We film more than a few times in doing it, so it's normal. If it is normal, then it's normal. They don't have a defense for that in the future, which is good. Because my concern that I had said before is that they say that I was acting weird first, which led to that, which is kind of what I'm saying now. Except that I'm not drugging anyone, I'm not doing anything, I'm showing that to you. Which you got to see. It's preserved for you to see. So you got to see for yourself and see what you judge by that. Including the same video, when I move forward, to say, you can listen to me saying in that audio, on that video, the words, hey, it's recording me on this, and that situation. But wait! There is more. On that phone, the audio recording takes precedence over the video. And it's the only phone that I know that does that, and I imagine it's another type of hack for that purpose. So, on that point, I realizing that the flashlight was on and knowing that I shut it down before, and I look around me and I see them acting, trying to act normal, which that even not for me in particular, but not just for me in general. Yeah, the guy getting out of the car exactly at the point when I pop in. Sometimes you literally just don't have to even point out. In case you were to notice, the guy literally left the door the second I glanced at the car. So, just pointing that out. That's what they think this case is about. They really think that at the end of the day, that's the evidence presented to you. A car, leaving a car in the right moment. And not that that's just another extra bit of what it shows to this particular event. It's not going to be the hard proof of evidence of them drugging me, or how you can see in video me talking normally and then actually start to act weird at a random point after 2 hours of recording because they start drugging me then. Or the torture days when you can see a person literally just melting down in agony as they joke and make commentaries around that clearly related to this crime that you got to see from before. Not the links, not the crimes with children as we just mentioned. No, it's going to be a guy leaving a car and then walking weirdly in the highway. That's the evidence that they think are presented to you. And perhaps for good reason. Perhaps they know that they're going to commit enough crimes to me to suppress the other ones, the actual good evidence that you get to see. So all you get is this. And if that's the case, yeah, that would make some sense. That would explain some of that behavior. Which is why there's evidence for the entire city. It's why everything's online. It's why everything's on YouTube these days. Why everything is on Shelltania. Why, yeah, I get it. That would really work. I took precautions to deal with it. So at the end of the day, today you see what you see. So that's the point. 3.5 years, by the way, that I know of, because before that they were stalking my home. And I did mention before how they were doing things in this neighbor's house to make up, to make things up. So we know there's lines going around, but because, funny enough, those criminals